I'm going to work 24 hours a day.
This is my surprise prediction of the week. I think Exeter are going to win.
I think they should just wait for Glasner. Hello and welcome to another episode of Pint Size Pressers. I'm Dan Bennett. I'm here with Nayan Murthy. We're here at Box Bar Piccadilly, as always. Great place to come and watch your football. Come and check it out. Not just football as well. They've got all sorts of sports on. They're showing highlights of the Ashes in here, which we don't really want to see, do we?
Not
too much?
really, not at all.
But yeah, come and check it out. It's a great place to come and watch your sport. A bit of a different episode this weekend, Nayan. Obviously, FA Cup action, not Premier League action. So we're going to preview all the big FA Cup games coming up. Another managerial sacking since we last spoke. They're coming regularly at the moment. Manchester United, obviously the news broke earlier this week that Ruben Amorim is no longer the head coach of the club. Similarities to Maresca, really, in the sense of, the things that he came out and said.
Following the last press conference.
Exactly, which we'll come on to in a minute. He obviously came out and said some quite critical things about the club, which was followed by him losing his job. I mean, what did you make of it all?
It was coming, wasn't it? I don't think it's a surprise when you say Ruben Amorim's been sacked, especially after Chelsea. They kind of followed suit from Chelsea, and especially we'll get onto it later. But that last press conference kind of put the nail in the coffin. I don't think it's a surprise at all.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned it there. Let's just hear what Ruben Amorim had to say in that final press conference before leaving the club.
I just want to say that I'm going to be the manager of this team, not just the coach, and I was really clear on that, and that is going to finish in 18 months, and then everyone is going to move on. That was the deal. That is my job, not to be a coach. If people cannot handle the Gary Nevilles and the criticisms of everything, we need to change the club. No, guys, I just want to say that I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach, and every department, the scouting department, the sport director needs to do their job. I will do mine for 18 months, and then we move on.
Attention turns to what's next for United. I mean, there's talk of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer potentially coming back as an interim until the end of the season, maybe Michael Carrick as well. Do you understand why they might go for a sort of a temporary fix till the end of the season and then try and get a permanent appointment? What are your thoughts on that?
Not at all, really.
No.
I don't think there's nothing to play for this season. If they get into the top 4, top 5, I'm not sure the top 5 will definitely have Champions League football, but they need to be in the Champions League next season. And they have a squad that could get into the Champions League. I know that Ruben Amorim played a specific style of football and bought players that would fit in there. But what they did buy was really good players. And Burma's going to fit in any system. Cunha's going to fit in any system. And getting in a real manager, a proper manager that they're going to see out for a long period of time will give them a better chance of getting into the Champions League, which is so important, not only for attracting new players in the summer, but also because they're Manchester United. They can't not be. They can't not be in the Champions League. They're Manchester United, and they cannot. I just don't think it's right for them to go. We're just going to give up this season.
Yeah, I don't think they're giving up. I think you're right. There is still loads to play for, and I think a lot of the kind of discourse around it seems to be that maybe there's not. But when you look at the league table, there is. I mean, they're completely in the fight for Champions League football. I think the only sort of way I can understand getting a temporary manager in until the end of the season is, they got Amorim in halfway through the season when he took over. It didn't go to plan. He struggled. The pressure immediately mounts. Obviously, Manchester United, there's more pressure than most clubs. Maybe, all clubs in the Premier League, you could argue with, all the ex-players and stuff that are still, involved in the media. So maybe they're thinking if we get him in the summer, we'll give him the best chance to succeed. We'll give him a pre-season, we'll give him a summer transfer window to, bring in his own players to kind of teach the players his methods and his preferred way of playing and kind of give the new manager the best chance of succeeding. I mean, I kind of understand it from that point of view, I think.
To go back on that, I think that this is exactly the right time that you want to sack a manager if you were going to sack a manager mid-season, because it's right at the start of the window. You can then go, what players do you want? We've got 20 days. We're going to buy you the players that you want for this window to give you the best opportunity to finish in the top 4 for the end of the season. But if they then go and wait till the end of January and then bring in a new manager, that's not going to be great for them, because then they're either going to have to buy players that manager might not want, or they definitely don't know that they don't definitely know that the manager wants, or they're going to have to go and bring in an interim if they bring in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I don't think that will be forever. If they do bring in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, they're then in a predicament where are they going to buy players for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Are they just going to waste the whole transfer window where they got the opportunity to buy players and just go, oh, we can't buy any players because we don't know who the manager is going to be next year? So I just think that it'd be a really tricky situation if they brought in an interim right now.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation, you do kind of have to laugh at it. I mean, probably Man United fans aren't laughing, but it does feel like we're just reliving the same story every 18 months, 2 years. You know, they get someone, they get Ten Hag, Amorim, whoever, they get them in, they try their way, it doesn't really work. They sack them and then they get in whichever ex-player to come in.
And
You know, Darren Fletcher at the moment, obviously, he probably doesn't look like he's going to be there for too long. Maybe they'll get an interim to replace the interim almost. But yeah, I think, you know, if they've got someone in mind, Oliver Glasner, perhaps, you know, obviously he's out of contract at Crystal Palace at the end of the season, probably wants to see out the season there. If they're waiting for him for the summer, I completely understand it. You know, get an interim boss in the meantime and then wait for Glasner. But if they're going to appoint someone that is already available, I don't think it makes too much sense to wait. But I mean, for me, I mean, we'll come on to it as well. Who you think is sort of primed for the job, who you think the best person is for the job? But for me, I think they should just wait for Glasner. Personally, what do you think?
Glasner's definitely a good player. I don't think they have to wait. I really don't. I think if they went for Glasner now, offered him the money, the Manchester United money, offered him, you're going to be the manager of Manchester United, from being at Crystal Palace, which do have a lot to play for this season. They've got the Conference League. You understand that's really big for him. He's qualified for that and he'll want to go all the way in it. But if you get the call from Manchester United, I think most managers take that, and I don't think Glasner's.
Well, I think it's just a bit. I mean, we don't know, do we? We don't know what Oliver Glasner's thinking, but it's quite a difficult one. You know, if they said it's now or never, then that is just kind of what they did with Ruben Amorim, and it didn't really work. So maybe they're kind of learning from those mistakes of the past. And yeah, I just think it could be quite a smart move to wait and then give the manager the best chance to succeed. Anyway, they're playing Brighton in the FA Cup this weekend. Darren Fletcher in temporary charge again. What do you think of this one?
I think this is a must-win game for Manchester United.
Must-win. Going there.
They cannot end the season having played 40 games of football. They're not in Europe. 38 games in the Premier League. And how
when you think back to that, how bad that Grimsby defeat was in the Carabao Cup, I think, you know, they're in the sort of position a bit like Liverpool, that we'll come on to later, where a cup running would be, you know, something to salvage from this season at least.
Yeah. And I just think that they've got a team that's good enough, especially in knockout football, where you only have to be better than the team for 90 minutes. You don't have to be better than them for a whole season. That they've got a really good opportunity to win the FA Cup. I'll go into there's a few other teams that we're going to talk about that I also think have a really good opportunity to win the FA Cup this year. And winning a trophy, I know they're Ten Hag won the FA Cup and they've won the League Cup before as well, and that didn't really amount to anything. But what it does do is it brings the fans and it brings the team together, and I think that's really important for a squad that's struggling to gel, and they obviously struggled under the last manager. So I think winning a trophy would be really good for Manchester United at the moment, and I do think they've got an opportunity to do it.
Think they'll go through?
Yeah, I think so. What about you?
Yes, I do. I think so. Okay, well, now on to a manager who's come into a club and not left. Obviously, we spoke about Chelsea last week when it looks like Liam Rozier, which I hopefully have pronounced correctly.
I think
I still need to practice it. Has got the job at Chelsea as we expected. We're going to speak to our Chelsea correspondent, Yetjeh now, about the situation at the club. All right, well, as if by magic, Nayan's vanished and Yetjeh is here. The magic of television. Firstly, how do you pronounce it?
Rozineor.
Rozineor.
Yeah.
All right, that's for all the Chelsea fans watching.
We got
they
the
know
three
to
things.
pronounce. Yeah, so a Chelsea expert. That's why we've got him on. Yeah, so he's obviously been appointed. I mean, it was kind of expected that he was going to be the man to get the job. You know, he was at Strasbourg, which is obviously owned by Chelsea's owners, Blue Co. What are your thoughts on the appointment? Obviously, it's a big job for him to come into, isn't it? Having not, I mean, Strasbourg's obviously a fairly big club, but he's not had a job anywhere near the magnitude of this one, has he?
It's definitely quite a jump for him. He's had 2 permanent appointments, Hull City and then Strasbourg. He had an interim period at Derby, but he wasn't the full manager there. So it's a big step up for him. He obviously had a successful last season at Strasbourg, taking them to 7th, which most people didn't expect. But this season there has been a slight drop-off, which a lot of people haven't mentioned. They were 7th at the time of him leaving, but they were on a league run of 1 win in their last 7 games. So I don't know whether that's second season syndrome or what's happened at the club there, but I do think that he's going to have to win the fans on side at Chelsea. A lot of Chelsea fans don't feel he is ready, so it's going to be up to him to prove them wrong.
Well, he held his first press conference earlier as Chelsea manager. So let's hear what he had to say now.
I've worked so hard pretty much my whole life for this opportunity. So now I'm just going to enjoy it, which is important. I'm going to work 24 hours a day. I'm intense when I'm with the players, and I'm going to push them as hard as I possibly can to be successful.
So yes, he obviously is taking charge of his first game in the FA Cup this weekend. He watched from the stands as Chelsea lost to Fulham. Just kind of showed the size of the job he's got, I suppose. He's got to lift a team that has been in a real rut, haven't they, recently? You know, he's got a big. It's not like he's coming in on a high when the players are playing well. It's going to be difficult, I think, for him to try and lift this team.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea on a run of 1 win in their last 9 games, so they're in really poor form. Obviously, there were a lot of issues with Maresca leaving. I think the morale amongst players, a lot of players were a bit shocked and confused when Maresca did leave. And you've got to remember that you've got someone like Enzo Fernandez, who's a World Cup winner. All of these players are now Club World Cup winners. These are serious players, and a lot of them are going to be looking at Rozineor and thinking, well, you have to prove yourself to us. Why should we buy into this? The one thing that Rozineor does have that I've noticed, and a lot of others have noticed, is he's a really good communicator. He did a lot of punditry before becoming a manager. He's, done a lot of interviews as well. And you can see that he knows how to communicate his ideas to the press. And you'd be surprised if he wasn't doing the same thing to his players. And Maresca at times wasn't a good communicator. He had a lot of people's backs up at times. The noise coming out from the club was that a lot of the falling out was also on his side, that, he was emotionally immature at times. So I think that Rozineor will be a good change in that aspect.
And, obviously against Fulham, we heard the chants from the fans about the ownership. It's quite a hostile atmosphere among the fans at the moment, sort of hostile attitude towards the owners, given how this season has gone and another manager's left. He's come in, obviously, as part of the Blue Co organisation already as the Strasbourg boss. Do you think that's something he's going to have to work and be up against? That kind of, he's coming in as their man, and if he doesn't hit the ground running, he's going to have to work against that almost.
I think that's definitely something that he'll have to contend with. Something that actually was quite nice, because I was at the game against Fulham, is that when he went over to the away fans, they clapped him and they were on side. He walked past and then they started sort of booing the ownership. So they've made it clear that they're not against him, it's the ownership and the sporting director. And on the point that you said, there is a protest planned for the 17th of January when Chelsea play at home against Brentford in the Premier League. It's actually Rozineor's first home game.
Yeah.
And
so all this, it's not an easy situation to come. I know, like you said, they're not necessarily against him, and everyone deserves a chance. Of course, he's not even taking charge of a game yet, so it's unfair to write him off and to judge him too soon. But to come in and be up against that, and it's not new, is it? We've had it at Chelsea a lot since the new owners came in, but it sort of comes and goes, doesn't it? And it's certainly back again at the moment.
I think a lot of fans as well will be a bit concerned that maybe one of the reasons Rozineor has come in is that he'll be happy to toe the party line and go along with what the owners want. We all know that a big reason Maresca left is because he felt he was being micromanaged, didn't have the control he felt that he should have had. So I think Rozineor, he knows exactly what he's stepping into. He knows his place, if you like. So I think fans will be a bit concerned by that.
Well, Charlton in the FA Cup, his first game in charge. Can you give us your prediction for this one?
I mean,
they should win. See, Charlton are struggling in the Championship, but
they
knows,
definitely
FA Cup
win.
could bring up some surprises.
That's also an interesting point, because so I asked Callum McFarlane if he knew why Rozineor wasn't taking charge against Fulham, because he'd been announced on the day before the game. McFarlane had told us that he was going to be at Cobham the day before the game, but then he couldn't say why he wasn't in charge against Fulham. And I've seen a lot of fans also questioning that. My own opinion on that would be that they've looked at the fixture list, gone, he can either have a tough away game at Fulham or
give him an easier,
a game that they should win against Charlton. So,
but then if it goes back the other,
listen, if they don't meet, if they
have
don't
to
meet
win at the end of the day,
they don't mean Charlton. I think this thing is doomed from the start. But
well, let's hope for his sake that it doesn't come to that. But yeah, thank you, Japtej, for joining us.
No worries at all.
Nayan's back again. We've swapped out again. We're moving on now to Spurs versus Aston Villa. Arguably the biggest tie of this FA Cup round, would you say?
Biggest, the two best teams supposedly against each other.
Yeah.
I think It's a massive game for both sides, I think, just because Villa haven't won a trophy in 30 years since they won the League Cup in '96. And Tottenham, although they did win their first trophy in 17 years last season, the FA Cup's the last thing I think that they've definitely got to play for this season. 14th in the Premier League, although they're only 7 points off the top five, or I think 7 points off top five or top four. That I'm not sure that's going to happen, especially with the run of form they're in. They haven't won in their last three. And I just think that the FA Cup offers them an opportunity that I think they can take. I know I spoke about this earlier with Manchester United, but I think this is really big for Tottenham because last season they became a bit of a cup team. They came 17th in the league, but in the League Cup they got to the semi-finals. They beat Liverpool in the first leg and got unlucky in the second leg. They lost 4-0 and they deservedly went out, but they got unlucky. There were certain things that could have gone other ways. Van Dijk could have been sent off early. They could have changed the game, but they also beat Manchester United and Manchester City on that run. They beat Manchester United in the Europa League final, and they did become a bit of a cup team under Ange Postecoglou, and they've got that same squad of players. And although Thomas Frank hasn't had the best start, I definitely think they have an opportunity to go all the way in the FA Cup.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Thomas Frank. There are obviously more problems he's had to deal with, not just on the pitch, obviously losing 3-2 to Bournemouth, but also off the pitch. After the game, Christian Romero, quite a critical social media post sort of aimed against those at the club.
Well, not just that, also Mickey van der Ven
And the
Porro
arguing
going
with the fans, of
arguing with the
course.
fans, yeah.
It's absolutely, yeah. Well, Thomas Frank spoke about that Romero social media post ahead of this FA Cup tie, is what he had to say.
I think after Kuti became the captain, I think he's done a lot of good things right. I said it when I named him the captain that he's an experienced player, tried a lot. He's still a young leader, and I think a lot of the things he's done well on and off the pitch, I'm happy with. Actually, I'm very happy with his performance last night. I think he was a true captain in many ways throughout the game. Half time when it was speaking up at half time when we're 2-1 down, keep believing, keep doing the right things. But also when you're a young leader, sometimes you make a mistake, of course. It's good to keep it internally. Johan and I had a good conversation with him this morning about everything, which we of course keeps internally. So yeah.
I appreciate that conversation stays internal, but was it along the lines of, that really doesn't help a message like that? Can you not?
No,
do that,
of course. I think we all know that. So we had a good conversation about things.
Well, as we touched on just before, we heard from Thomas Franklin, and all is still not well at top. I mean, I didn't really expect all to be well within a week since we last spoke, but if it's, arguably it has got worse, hasn't it? More sort of tension between the players and the manager and the fans. Obviously, Romero coming out and criticising
The owner,
the club, the owner got coming out against the owners, or it was sort of, it wouldn't really say who it was against, but you think it was the directors and people in charge, wasn't it? At the club.
The one statement that was in the original Instagram post,
which has now changed, we should say.
It's just now been changed.
No harm done.
Said that the hierarchy come out and tell lies is the first thing that he said, which one is really damning to the ownership for the captain of the club, possibly the best player.
It's not just any player, it's the captain coming up.
And you would have thought if the captain's saying that, this is completely hypothetical and I don't know definitely, but you would have thought if the captain saying that there might be some backing from the other players in the club as well. And that's really not good for the owners, who did make themselves look good over the summer. Vinay Venkateshan came in, did a lot of good speaking over the summer. They said they were going to invest money in the club, and the Joe Lewis's family said they were going to be invested in the club, and they weren't going to sell the club when the rumours of selling came up. And yet that kind of the rapport with the fans that they built over that time has kind of all come smashing down here. And even though Daniel Levy's gone, there's still problems with the ownership at Spurs.
Thanks, absolutely, yeah. Well, don't give me a Mick McCarthy response for this one, okay? I'm telling you now, but it can't carry on like this, surely. Can it?
It can.
I mean, you certainly with the fans and this is not the first time it's happened. I'm not saying that, you need to sack the manager or anything, but something has got to change, hasn't it? Because it can't carry on like this all season.
This is all personal, but I just sacking the manager when there are clearly other things at play that are wrong with the club. might be the right decision to make, but you can't then keep making that decision and then going, oh, it's the manager's fault. It was Ange Postecoglou's fault 6 months ago. Now it's Thomas Frank's fault. Before that, it was Conte's fault. Before that, it was Nuno's fault. Is it somebody else? I know Levy's gone, and that was who the fans were mainly blaming before. But is there something wrong with the club, and is that the problem that maybe that needs to change? I'm not sure how that happens. I'm not sure how it happens behind the scenes.
I know. Honestly, it's a bit simplistic, but I don't think the playing squad's good enough, especially in attack. I think they're they sold Brennan Johnson, who, like we spoke about last week, maybe not the most technically gifted player, but scores goals. Kudus is now injured, which is a big blow. I don't think they've got enough in attack. I think they're really lacking. I think if they address that, I think they would certainly be a lot better off than they are now.
Definitely, and I think against Bournemouth, I was at the Bournemouth game, and they looked a lot
better in attack.
they looked a lot better in every
defensively.
Well, defensively they've not been good for a while. So, but in that Bournemouth game, that looked like a really good performance. Tell looked really good on the wing. He scored that really good goal 5 minutes in, and then there was 10 minutes where Spurs kind of all lost their heads and they conceded 2 goals quite quickly. And then Spurs did come back from it. And after João Paulinho scored that overhead kick, it looked like Spurs were going to win it. Petrovic made a brilliant save. Richarlison somehow missed from 2 yards out. I'm not sure how that happened, but they did look a lot better. And that might be indicative of Thomas Frank implementing his style now. Or Bournemouth haven't been great. They've lost that.
I mean, they are poor defensively, aren't they?
So they hadn't won in their last 7 before that. So
I think it was 11.
Was it 11?
Yeah, I think it was 10 or 11 that they'd not won in the league. So yes, or give us a prediction for Aston Villa in the FA Cup. Think Spurs will go through?
Spurs are at home, which hasn't always been good for them.
It's probably not a good thing.
No, but it has been good for them in the Champions League, and I just do think they're going to win. I think they're going to have. I think Aston Villa are a much better team than Spurs as it stands, but I do think Spurs will win this game.
I don't. I think Aston Villa are going to go through. That's my prediction.
Going the more obvious route with that one.
Yes, yeah. Okay, well, we'll move on to Arsenal now. Obviously, had that goalless draw against Liverpool on Thursday. Not the best game, it's fair to say. And Mikel Arteta was asked after the game about striker Victor Gyökeres, who's struggling for goals at the moment. 1 in his last 9 league games, and that was a penalty. Here's what he had to say about the Swedish striker.
Victor Gyökeres didn't seem to be going near the crosses. We've obviously spoken about how the teammates need to adapt to him, he needs to adapt to the teammates. Why is he failing to make most of these chances?
He was in great position. Sometimes the ball didn't arrive, and as I said, there was situation. Normally we go into the 6-yard box almost with the ball in the feet, and normally that's a goal, or you pick somebody and you score a goal, and we didn't do that. And that's the thing that today we have to improve. A part of the things that we did in the second half that wasn't probably at the standards that we are used to it.
Look, it's obviously not just Gyökeres, I don't want to put it all on him, but we can't shy away from the fact that he is struggling at the moment. I think 8 touches he had in the game against Liverpool. I watched him in the game against Bournemouth and he wasn't really involved much. And, when we talk about touches, it's kind of Erling Haaland sort of made this a difficult conversation to have.
He scored the goal.
Exactly,
That's the thing.
because he never touches the ball, but, I don't think you can compare Erling Haaland to any striker, really. He's completely unlike anyone else, but I think if there's one criticism to aim at Arsenal this season, is that they're not scoring enough goals, even though they have been outstanding defensively and they're deservedly top of the league by 6 points. The goals are lacking. I mean, their 2 top scorers, Gyökeres and Trossard in the league, have got 5 each, and the lowest goal scorer they've had in the Premier League, top goal scorer, finished with 13. So, I mean, they could realistically win the league and have their lowest ever top goal scorer, which would be bizarre.
Arsenal as a team have been brilliant, and we're not taking away from.
No, of course not. I mean, we don't want to be too negative because they deserve far more plaudits than they do criticism.
And I think that although they get named as set piece FC and everything, and Mikel Arteta has done really well without a top scoring striker to go, well, we're going to find a different way to score, and he's done it with the set pieces. But it's also true that Gyökeres has not been good enough, especially because he's bought in his pomp from Sporting Lisbon. He's 27 years old. You would expect at that age you just kind of fit right in. You don't have time to bed in when you're in that age. Usually players are bought a lot younger, and therefore you kind of give them a bit more leeway. But because he just hasn't seemed to work with Premier League football. He played in England before, so I don't know what's wrong with him.
He's not played in the Premier League before, so you can kind of put it down to that. I mean, maybe being a bit of adjusting time, but it's not worked so far. Obviously, you know, it's only been half a season. There's still a lot of time left for him to improve, and I think there's something there. You know, he's big, he runs in behind, he causes, and I think part of it is probably also because Arsenal aren't finding him enough. It's not all on Gyökeres, but yeah, I wonder if Gabriel Jesus might be the answer.
He's definitely more similar to what I'm not sure. We haven't seen Mikel Arteta at another club, so we don't know what he likes. But Victor Gyökeres is very different to any other striker Arsenal have had since Aubameyang.
Yeah.
Where he is just a goal scorer, right? Brute force, he's going to put the ball in the goal. Whereas Havertz and Jesus, who have been there before and played up front before, even Trossard, who fills in the 9 every now and then, they're players that link the play. They might not score as many goals, but they'll find Saka and they'll find Martinelli in the spaces. A bit like Firmino at Liverpool, where they're more creative.
Yeah, I think Jesus isn't as much of a goal scorer, but he does, I think, make the overall team better. I think in the glimpses we've seen him, obviously he's been out for such a long time, he's still working his way back to fitness, but I think the way he combines with the other players, I think that could help Arsenal maybe, and I wonder if Mikel Arteta maybe needs to lean more towards Jesus now than Gyökeres. Obviously Havertz is coming back as well, but I do think it will take him a little while to work his way.
They really are missing him, I think, especially before that long ball. He's really good at holding that up, and I think that they are missing that with Gyökeres. But his first touch hasn't been great so far this season.
Well, Portsmouth away in the FA Cup, another like Chelsea playing Charlton, another Championship team who are struggling this season. They should win this. You'd be very surprised if they don't, right? I mean, it'll probably be a chance for him to see some other, maybe like Madueke as they starting. Do you think?
Yeah, I think with that, you would have hoped we'd see Eze because we haven't seen him much so far.
No, I think the game against Liverpool he came on. He hadn't played in the last 4 league games before that,
and only got 10 minutes at the end of that anyway.
Yeah, 15 was it? Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
but I just think that he has to play. And for prediction wise, this isn't a game for an upset. This isn't one that we're going to find an upset in. Arsenal are going to steamroller Portsmouth, I think. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I can't see an upset from this one. Okay, well, we'll move on to Manchester City now. Big news earlier in the day that they confirmed the signing of Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth. Obviously been expected for a while, but that is now official. Here's what Pep Guardiola had to say about his new signing.
Everybody knows the quality is right, so I play extraordinary in Bournemouth in the last years. Can play in both sides, right, left. He used the both legs unbelievably, and in striker as well can play for his pace, and he knows the Premier League. So many clubs want him, and he decided to join us. So all I can say is thanks to him. Yeah, really pleased for the next years.
Yeah, obviously they've got a lot of forwards, maybe a bit confusing of a signing from that aspect, but not confusing in the sense that he's just a quality player, isn't he? And he's going to make City better, I think.
Well, again, I was at Bournemouth Spurs, and when he picked the ball up in the 95th minute, 25 yards from goal, I think in everyone's mind, everyone knew what was going to happen. That ball was going in the bottom corner, and he's been really good. Bournemouth have struggled of late, but he scored a lot of goals this season. I don't know the exact number, but in my fantasy team anyway, he seems to clock up the points.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I've got him in my fantasy team too. I'm thinking maybe keep him in or take him out. That's a tough one. They're not a fantasy football show, but you've set something off in my brain there.
I obviously my Marmouche is at AFCON.
Yes,
Sabinho's injured. Oscar Bob's injured. So I think that's definitely game time.
Going to go straight in. Yeah, well, like we said, we heard from Guardiola there who's saying that he's going to make an immediate impact, and I think it's a really, really good signing. I mean, I know it's 64 million, still a lot of money, but in today's market, it's not as much as maybe he would have cost without that release clause. So,
well, they got under the release clause. I think it was 62.5. They got him.
Yeah,
they got him for like a tad less than release clause. Really surprised.
It's always difficult to know exactly what, but anyway, you know, it represents, you'd think, good value for a player who's 25. Is he 26?
25. I think.
Yeah. So I think it's a really good signing. They've got Exeter at home in the FA Cup. So another one where it's tough to see an upset, isn't it?
I actually
struggling in League One. Really?
This is my. I know that when you got Wolves, your Wolves predicted right last time.
We didn't make a clip of that, but we should have done. I told you that, and we didn't. Yeah. There's still time.
There's still time, but you got that right last time. This is my surprise prediction of the week. I think Exeter are gonna win.
Really? Exeter to beat Man.
That's my prediction.
I didn't expect that at all. Wow. Well, there you go. I mean, we could come back at this and think about what a genius you are, but unfortunately I just can't see it. I'll be shocked if Manchester City don't win this one, but fair play for you sticking your neck out there and predicting that one.
Well, it was
I respect it.
It was brewing in my head because you went to the Swansea League Cup game and they didn't have Haaland, and
but
I don't think
they're in
Haaland
League
are gonna,
One and they're struggling in League One as well.
But I just think that Haaland isn't going to play, and I don't think they're going to be toothless. But I think that Exeter's going to pull off a 1-0.
There you go.
If I get the score right as
be
well.
a big story. Okay, we'll move on to Liverpool now. And like we said, goalless draw against Arsenal. Grew into the game, didn't they, during that one? Didn't start too well, but certainly grew into it. But again, kind of struggled to create chances, as Arne Slot pointed to after the game. Actually, this is what he had to say.
No, definitely with the performance, to a certain extent also with the result, because Arsenal is having a great season domestically and also in Europe, so you know how hard it is to even get a result against them, let alone to win. So that's why, to a certain extent, you're positive about the result. I think in the first half they had much more ball possession than us, although in some spells of the game you could already see how well we can play the ball out from the back and how many times we could play through them. But they were more dominant, were a few times very dangerous over their right side with Timber and Saka. But that led to not much more than crosses. And in the second half, I think we defended a little bit better in their first build-up, so that made it more difficult for them to dominate as much as they did in the first half. And we were even better on the ball, or we did similar things like the parts in the first half to dominate.
So we heard from Arne Slot there. You know, it's strange because earlier in the season they were scoring a lot of goals and conceding too many. Obviously, he's tweaked things a bit and made them more defensively solid, but now he's saying they're not creating enough chances. And, you know, they're on a long, I think it's 10 games unbeaten. I didn't write it down, I should have done. But yeah, anyway, they're on a decent unbeaten run, few draws in there. They have gotten more defensively solid, but you can tell he's kind of frustrated that they're not creating the chances that the position they have deserves.
I think when we're talking about their opposition, Arsenal, and their striker, they're really missing Ekitike and Alexander Isak in that game. And I think that just shows how important a striker is. And they went and spent over 200 million on strikers. Isak hasn't bedded in well and obviously got really unlucky, scored the goal and then got injured against Spurs. And Ekitike has been really good for Liverpool. And I think they really did miss some cutting edge up front.
Yeah.
Obviously, Arsenal's defence is the best in the league, if not the world at the moment. And not creating chances against Arsenal isn't a sackable offence or anything like that. But they definitely did look like they missed the trick up front. And I think that game was there to be won. Arsenal really weren't at their level best.
Especially in the second half. I think you're right. I think if they put Gakpo or Wirtz up there, it's not the same as it is having Ekitike or Isak. I think they are really missing that centre forward. And we'll see if Ekitike comes back for this FA Cup game, where they're hosting Barnsley, League One Barnsley. You going for another massive upset here? No, they've already done one. You go for two.
Yeah. That was my one for the week. I do think that Liverpool won't be like, oh, Liverpool win 8-0 and the game's over, but they're definitely going to.
I think Barnsley will score. That's my bold prediction. I think Barnsley will score, but Liverpool will win.
Not so defensive.
Not really, sticking my neck out too much like you did. But I think Barnsley will score a goal, but you going Liverpool to win?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, there's some other interesting cup ties to look out for this weekend. We'll run through some of them. Macclesfield, Crystal Palace, non-league Macclesfield hosting the current FA Cup winners. That's a huge game. Everton v Sunderland in the Premier League. Both of those teams you think will be targeting a cup run. That they look pretty
definitely
safe, you think, yeah. And I mean Everton as well. I think it's been a while since they've won a trophy, hasn't it? It's been like Aston Villa, like you were spoken about earlier. Newcastle, Bournemouth. Newcastle been good in the cup, so that will be another big opportunity for them. West Ham QPR as well, London derby. So
West Ham do have a lot to play for in the league.
I mean, I don't think they're not going to be prioritising the FA Cup. I think that could be a potential upset. QPR have been not great, but pretty good this season. I think they're just outside the playoffs, so I think that could be a potential upset.
Would it be an upset? Is that not just?
It was still an upset. I mean, there's probably not that many places between them if you calculate it, but still Championship League, Premier League. I think we can class it as an upset. But yes, plenty of FA Cup football to watch this weekend. Right, we'll move on to our regular segment, pint-sized partner. Who are you thinking about taking out for a pint at Box Bar Piccadilly this week?
Well, I think I'm taking out someone that will be happy to be making pints and not espressos. Thomas Frank's espresso maker, who decided to give him his espresso before the Bournemouth game in an Arsenal Cup. I think
Did he get someone to make it, or did he make it himself?
well, that's what he said.
Who knows? He got something. He's blamed someone else made it, wasn't me?
I just want to say he got really unlucky in that situation. I'm not saying I'm not. I've got a pint here. I didn't check what was on the cup before, so
Hang on.
not quite an Arsenal badge or any badge.
I mean, that was just one of the. I felt sorry for him because I think he was right. When he spoke about after in the press conference about getting asked about it. It is so stupid and it's so unimportant, but it's just one of those moments where it's just like I don't know if you've ever seen the thick of it, but where they're constantly making like gaffes, the politicians. It reminded me exactly of that. He just made an honest mistake and then he's getting asked about it in the press conference, and with how bad Spurs are doing, it just made things worse, didn't it?
Well, it's just one of those things where if Spurs had won their last 8 games and they were cruising in the top 4, and everyone would just be laughing with them,
Well, I think he's done his test now. I think he's going to check his cups now before he makes a drink.
I really
He'll be
hope so.
diligently checking every single one for any sign of a rival team's badge on there. I'd say Callum McFarlane for me. I think he's been, I think few people had heard of him before the last couple of weeks, and he got thrust into a really difficult situation. I think it'd be interesting to hear about being in that situation, how he's handled it. I think he's handled it well, to be fair, and he's got himself a promotion out of it as well. He's going to be first team coach, not the under-21s manager. So yes, he is my Pint-Sized Partner this week.
We've got a really good clip of him that I'm going to put in here, where he was asked about the Chelsea under-21 score, where he asked for the Chelsea under-21 score in the presser. So here it is.
Back with the under-21s tomorrow. They're playing tonight. I actually don't know the score. I'd love to know the score if anyone knows. Okay, thank you.
Yes, that was indeed a good one, wasn't it? I mean, an unexpected funny moment from that press conference. But yes, thank you for watching. As always, like I say, we're here in Box Bar, Piccadilly. Come and check it out. Loads of sport on this weekend. Come and watch right in the heart of London. It's a great place to come. So yes, come and check it out. And as always, all the press conferences that you've seen in this show are available to watch on HaytersTV's YouTube channel and all our social platforms. Thank you, Nayan. And thank you everyone for watching. And we'll be back next week again with another episode.
Cheers.